We are live on Pej's account and Beginnings and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. We're all over the place.
That's
Regardless,
right.
Welcome back to the Sober Grind podcast. I am joined by my friend
Pej.
And I'm, of course, your co-host, Austin. Today we have a very interesting and hopefully helpful topic for you all and for family members. The act of and gift of desperation.
Gift of desperation.
The gift of desperation.
Gift.
What does that mean to you, Pej? Because I'm interested in learning more about this. So what is the gift of desperation? Because, pardon my ignorance, I have not heard this term before.
Okay.
So I'm excited to learn with our audience.
Well, I mean, in the recovery community, often we will hear this term, the gift of desperation. And people wonder, like, you know, that's like a contradiction. How is that a gift? In reality, a person doesn't usually get well when it comes to substance abuse disorder. When they are out using and drinking and it's become a major problem in their life, until they get desperate, they never really are able to come into the path. And even when they come into the path, if they're not completely desperate, if they're not completely licked, then they're not desperate and they don't actually get this thing. I see a lot of people that come into recovery, and a lot of them may have run into some barriers and it's holding them back, whether it be with the law, whether it be with familial problems, whether it be with you know, being put on academic probation or being kicked out of school. Certain things may happen in somebody's life to where they have now had to seek help. So some of them come into treatment, some of them come into 12-step programs, some of them, you know, go into the path of recovery. But do they stay? Not often. You know, a lot of times things will come up and they won't completely be desperate enough to the point where they want to embrace recovery. So the gift of desperation is that when you actually come into the path and you're desperate enough to where you've lost everything, and you know, a lot of times nobody wants to have anything to do with you anymore, or there's people are limited in the way that they interact with you or help you anymore. That's when people actually get to work, you know, at the recovery program, however that may be. And once they get to the point where they want to get in the recovery, then, you know, that whole becoming desperate is a gift within itself.
I see.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you for that explanation. We're certainly going to dive deeper into that. I want to open it up to questions, as always, as well. Let us know where you're watching from. Say hello. We're here to talk and answer questions and make this a learning, helpful, and hopefully somewhat fun experience for everyone.
I hope so.
Involved as well.
I hope so.
Whether you're watching this live, whether you're watching it afterwards or listening to it, send us some questions, leave some comments, leave some questions, share this with loved ones, and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can, or answer it in the next, or answer it live, regardless. So let's... This sounds like it aligns a lot with the term rock bottom. So I assume, well, can't assume, I know, that rock bottom is different for different people at that point.
Yeah.
So how do you hit rock bottom? How do you know that you've hit rock bottom?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different... See, when it comes to rock bottom, a lot of people think that you have to hit rock bottom in order to actually seek sobriety, to seek recovery. And the reality of it is that a lot of people can hit rock bottom multiple times. There's a saying, another saying. Pej is just full of sayings. It's just stuff I've learned over the years. But
Phrase of the day with Pej.
There's a saying that every bottom has a trap door. So every rock bottom has a trap door.
Sure.
And let's say, for example, like all the times that I would keep getting locked up for drug-related offenses or being under the influence and getting incarcerated as a result of my interactions from the things that I would do when I was out there using and drinking. Well, it's like every time I'd go into jail, you think that should be a bottom, right? I mean, this is it. Like you're done. You're in jail. Like this is the last place that you would have wanted to end up, and now you when I'd be in there, I'd be absolutely convinced that I'm going to be good. When I get out, I'm going to behave right. I'm going to walk a straight line, and the second I would get out, I would be right back out and doing what I was doing. Now, why was that? Because sometimes I would still be able to pull a wool over somebody's eyes, and they would be able to support me. And by supporting me, that was also harboring a active addict and alcoholic. So I would just go right back to doing what I was doing. Therefore, my rock bottom was senseless. I mean, it really wasn't a rock bottom because I still had some more mileage. You know, I was still able to go back out and go for another run. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, rock bottom could be different for a lot of people. If you look at homeless people that have, a lot of homeless people are obviously living out there because they have mental illness, right? Or mental illness that's coupled with addiction. And some people are just out there because they're straight up addicts and alcoholics, and they live to get loaded. You know, a lot of people will give money to homeless thinking that they're helping them. But actually, you know, I believe that you're actually hurting them. When you're giving an addict, you know, and you don't know that they're an addict, they're sitting on the side of the freeway and you give them money, but you don't know that the second you give them money, if everybody keeps giving them money, they're going to make it to their dealer's house or to their dealer's place, get some more drugs, and then they're going to go to some motel and they're going to get loaded. They're going to put a needle in their arm or get loaded and get a bottle and keep drinking. So, you know, for them, it's like, where's their bottom? Is it really a bottom when that's their survival mechanism, is to be able to nurture their addiction by begging people for money, by panhandling and getting people to keep giving them money. So there's really no bottom there. And you would think a homeless person is living in their rock bottom, but that's not a bottom, right? I think personally, one of the best rock bottoms that anybody could experience is the bottom within. And that means when you're absolutely licked, again, like I said earlier, to the point where you're like, not only have I drained and exhausted all of my resources physically with all my family, friends, and nobody wants to have anything to do with me, but I'm just sick and tired of my own self. When you actually have the point where you get honest with your innermost self and you just don't like the way you're living anymore and you really want to change yourself, I think that's like the ultimate bottom, and that's the one where, you know, it's kind of like a spiritual rock bottom. Like your spirit is dead and you want to rejuvenate and re-enliven it.
I assume you need some sort of self-awareness at that point as well. What if you're at that point, but you just don't know how to take the next step to get help? What if, to kind of paraphrase what Tarek said in a meeting the other day, that even if you've hit rock bottom, the pain of getting help needs to be less than the pain that you're currently in.
Well, this doesn't just go towards the addict that's not in the full pain that they need to be in, or the alcoholic, but it's the family members.
Yeah.
There's one of the main problems, and I often say this to a lot of different parents, and it doesn't sit well with them, is that it's not really your kid that has this problem. Yes, granted, they're an addict, they're an alcoholic, they're not getting well, they keep relapsing, they keep going out. But what are you doing to enable them? Why are you constantly rescuing them? Why are you the helicopter mom or dad? Why are you chasing them around trying to be in control of them? Haven't you by now seen how many times they've misused your trust? Haven't you by now come to the realization, the real person that needs the realization is usually the family member or the loved one or the husband or the wife that keeps on dealing with these people and letting them run rampant through their lives. You know, they keep providing the space for somebody to keep getting loaded. They're going to keep using up that space. It's not really that they're bad people. They're good people. Part of them is good. But unfortunately, their sickness, their mental illness, their disease, for a better term, sense of words, is that that's what's running their lives. And when they're in full active addiction, as long as they have the resources, they're going to keep using it. So you keep giving them money even when they tell you it's for something else. Like a lot of times, an addict will ask a family member or a loved one, "Will you please just loan me $40? Will you please just loan me $60? We think it's going towards books or food or things like that. But the reality of it is that $40 or $60 will get them a nice rock, a nice piece of tar, a nice bag, a nice, something to get loaded with. So, and it usually starts with the small stuff. Sometimes it's just for weed, right? But the addiction is building. So, I don't know if did I fall off the course with the whole question?
No, that's okay. Let's open this back up to questions again. Odie, can you share this into groups?
Yeah.
Cool. So what questions do you have? Now's your chance, your opportunity to directly communicate with Pej, the expert. I don't know the best information that I could put out there, but I'm happy to talk to you too. Communicate with us. This is a social network. Let's have an open conversation about this stuff.
Ask us any questions if you like. And also, in the meantime, just so you know, we're affiliated. Beginnings also hosts another page. It's called Ask an Addiction Specialist. It's actually down there in the bottom part. You can click on there. It's a
amazing community.
Right. It's a Facebook community where you can ask any question. If you're an addict, alcoholic that's in current addiction or trying to get out, or you're newly sober and you have questions, come in and ask questions. We have professionals there that are readily available to answer any kind of questions. We also have people that are in recovery that have been sober for a while that could also answer your questions. But it's a good community. It's a good place to come and ask questions. It's called Ask an Addiction Specialist. You can always just type it in that top bar too and ask the questions. Absolutely.
Thanks for highlighting that, Pesh.
Sure.
So I want to get into. Let's dive even deeper.
Okay.
So the maybe select few that nothing is working.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think that they keep going through that trap door.
Right.
The families cut them off.
Mm-hmm.
They can't possibly be any lower.
Right.
Even in their own head.
Right.
What solutions are there?
A lot of times,
what do you do?
Unfortunately, what I see is there's a lot of false pride and ego that goes along with a lot of people's characteristics. And I'll just say it from personal experience. A lot of times, I was very sure of myself. I thought I could quit when I wanted to quit. I would literally look in the mirror and say, I could quit on Monday if I wanted to, but today I'm going to keep getting loaded. Now, where was I doing this? I was either doing it, at first it was in the comfort of my own home, where I could afford things. But when I caused enough wreckage for myself, where I got evicted from my apartment and I was living, I almost went homeless. My mom, once again, being the helicopter mom, came and rescued me and took me back into her house. I was in her house, right? So I had police interaction. I'd gone to jail a few times, and she just kept coming and pulling me out and putting me back into my environment. That's the lion's den, as I so often speak about, right? So it's basically a place where I can use in peace. Nobody's bothering me. I get to hide my drugs from my mom, and then I don't, ever really get well. Now, if I went to jail a few more times and I keep getting out of jail and she keeps letting me in, that's one thing. But if I come out and they do not support me, absolutely no support, which my mom finally got to that point in her life where she cut me off, that's the time where it gave me the opportunity to really, really, really seek solid recovery, right? And that's because I knew I ran out of resources. I knew that somebody got into my mom's ear and they told her, don't help him anymore. You're not helping him, you're hurting him. And then she cut that umbilical cord and I was on my own. Now, sometimes that pride and ego is so big, because, and it's rightfully so, they're allowed to have that ego because somebody enables them to have it. So I've seen people who the best success stories that I've ever seen in recovery are usually with the people who have completely exhausted their resources and nobody is letting them reignite them. In other words, like once you're done, you're done. I've seen one guy that called me. He'd been through jails, institutions. He'd been to the Salvation Army. I mean, he had been to the bottom of the barrel, like the lowest of the lowest sober livings. And then finally it just got to a point where he was like staying in a Starbucks and he was just trying to charge his phone so that he could make phone calls and calling me and saying, what should I do now? And, I tried to refer him to a place where it was a week-by-week basis where he had nothing else going on. But what the dad did in order for him to wake up was to cut all ties. And it was hard for the dad. For the longest time, the dad basically blocked his number, didn't talk to him for almost a year.
Has to be tough.
It was very tough, but it made this kid so desperate to the point where he it wasn't even about proving to his dad that he could become the best version of himself or do better for himself and become sober, but it was to himself that he had to prove it. I think when a person actually wants to get sober for themselves, they have a much higher success rate as opposed to people that are doing it for a family member. Usually anybody that's coming into treatment or trying to get sober for somebody else does not stay sober. They don't stay sober. It's very rare that someone does it for their kids or someone does it for their parents or someone does it for wife or husband or boyfriend or
Has to be
girlfriend.
for themselves.
It's got to be for themselves. A person has, and I think that we all have the opportunity in life to have that self-realization to the point where you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You get sick and tired of yourself. You get out of your own way, and you do this, you do sobriety the way other people do sobriety to the point where then you can rebuild your relationships and you can actually be nice to people and not use people and not just be a taker but be a giver and give back for all the times that you took. And it's very sad. There's a lot of people I work with that are extremely spoiled by their families, and their families are basically trying to buy their love, and they buy their love all the way into active addiction, and then they keep trying to buy their love by rescuing and saving and thinking that they're helping them, but they're really not helping them. They're hurting them, and truth be told, they're killing them. Yeah.
Where does the role of like dual diagnosis or mental deficiencies that maybe the individual is not able to have that mindset that they need to do it for themselves, and they're at this point, what can they do?
As the individual or the family of the individual?
As the individual. So I just want to open this up to everyone. So what if there's a person in a very bad situation that doesn't have any family members, doesn't have anyone to connect with, and there's something going on up there that they don't have the self-awareness to say, hey, I need to do this.
Right. Well,
what are the solutions?
I believe due to the fact that dual diagnosis, mental disorders, there's such a wide range of different types of disorders. In some recovery settings, there's a saying that there are those who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but even they too can get to a certain point of recovery if they get honest with themselves. Now, that depends on the person.
Sure.
If a person is in full-blown psychosis, they don't have the capacity or the ability to make proper, sound decisions. If somebody is bipolar and they're addicted to drugs and alcohol, and things are to the point where they are still somewhat able to make decisions, they can really. There's medication out there that can level them and make sure that they're sane enough to be able to work towards the recovery. We work in a facility. Beginnings is primary substance abuse, but we also work with co-occurring and dual diagnosis patients. A lot of times we have a lot of different people, and in most cases, people that usually go to treatment are one and the same. They have some kind of other co-occurring disorder that goes hand in hand with their addiction. The problem is that people with mental illness, that when they start to mingle with drugs, or whether they're even using drugs of any kind, whether it be weed or alcohol or heavier drugs, it can put them. It doesn't make it. It makes it very bad for them mentally. They start to hear voices a lot of times. There's a lot of times where they'll have suicidal ideation. They themselves don't like the fact that they're in this state of, that they have this disorder. They come to the realization that I have this and I don't like it. A lot of them will be resistant to taking the medications that will stabilize them, and a lot of them are so far gone, and that is why you see, like, when you go, let's say, for example, to Skid Row, there's people living out there that kind of like live in a mutant type of state. So basically, like, on a day-to-day, they're on the grind to try to go and get drugs and however they can, but they've also, like, shot out their brains. They're completely warped, right? Yeah. They're like zombified to the point where, you'll see the guy sometimes, like, that's walking down the street just screaming at the top of his lungs or having full-on conversations with himself and talking to himself, and it's just a wide range. But I think that if somebody is actually, now, when it comes to family members, that's a whole other animal. Like, now, when they've got a loved one that's in that state where they have both the co-occurring dual diagnosis disorders as well as the addiction, well, then they know they have a lot more on their plate, and that it's a much more sensitive type of case. You want to make sure that you're putting them in the right facility, make sure that the facility is able to have the type of therapists that can work with this type. A lot of times if somebody's a full-on schizophrenic, if they're not stabilized, they're not going to be able to go into some facilities. There are there are solely some centers that are just based around that. So it's
a tough situation.
It is a very tough situation.
Yeah.
But it's the reality of it. And a lot of times, a lot of these kids, you'll start to see a lot of their mental disorders like bipolarity and things like that. in their early 20s. You will see with a lot of men and a lot of women. You know, and then there's a wide range. There's everything from Asperger's to many different types of disorders that go hand in hand with addiction.
Yeah, thank you for that insight.
Yeah.
We do have a question from the audience. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in. Please continue to ask your questions, post them in the comments. Is cutting them off loving? Well, it's tough love.
Yeah, so Curtis asked the question, is cutting them off loving? So, you know, I think in most cases, it's obviously we hear the term tough love. And, you know, if you have a kid and you're constantly supplying, providing the space for them to live, and you're paying the bills for them, and whatever money that they get, they keep using, and, you know, they get to the point where they're using so much where it's become a major problem in their life, I don't see why you wouldn't cut them off. Like, I can just say this for myself. It worked for me in my household where I got cut off, and it made me desperate enough to go out and seek help outside of my family. And I luckily, the planets and the stars aligned to the point where once I actually reached out for help, I was desperate enough. And one person led me to the next person, which in turn led me to the professionals that helped me to get my life back. As opposed to my parents and my family that were not professionals, did not know what words to use, what to say. It was all about lecturing and telling me, like, you should have been, you could have been, you had so much potential. Yeah, we've heard all that. Like, sure, whatever. Like, okay,
that
great.
Doesn't work.
It's a sinking ship. Like, I've already sunk the ship. You can't tell me, like that I'm going to get back to where I need to be. Now, if I had a child myself, up until the age of 18 in my house, I would not allow drinking and using. You know, this is just me. Me personally, I would not allow it. And then after that, when they turn over 18, if they want to go and live on their own 2 feet, and if they want to, like, you know, experiment with weed or buy weed or do, you know, drugs and things like that, me personally, like, I'm not going to pay for that stuff.
Sure.
Like, if that's what you want to do with your life, that's on you. That over 18, you're an adult. You know, you want my help? I really prefer that you be a sober son or a sober daughter. Look at me. I just go right towards wanting to have a boy, right? But, you know, in the reality of it is kids are going to always experiment, and kids are always going to have different phases. Some of them become full-blown addicts. Some of them, it's just a phase, right? But as far as cutting them off, if they've gotten so bad, I don't think it hurts to cut somebody off. You know, I mean, what? A lot of people say, well, I don't want to see him go out on the street and die. Well, what, you want him to die in your house? So, yeah, cutting off somebody is of vital importance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I want to open it up. Any final questions, comments, hellos, where you're watching from?
Where are you guys watching from? Where is everybody? Let us know. What city, what state, what country. And then also, another thing is, just so you know, this is the Sober Grind. Even though we're doing a live stream today
Sober Grind
from my Facebook page, we also have the Beginnings Treatment Facebook page. You can always come and check us out over there. We also, this is a podcast as well as a live stream, so it's recorded later. We will usually on a weekly basis have somebody that does anywhere from a 3 to 5 minute testimonial, a sober human being who tells us
just kind of their recovery story, what they're up to, what they've gone through. And we open that up to the public as well. If you'd like to share your story, whether include your name or anonymous, it's your opportunity to put your story out there and help other people. And
also you can tell your friends about the Sober Grind. And the easiest way to find us is you can go on YouTube, you can go on iHeartRadio, you can go on Google, on their
Google Play, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Just type in Sober Grind, and that's where you can find us. I know I got a lot of friends that have been listening. Tell another friend, subscribe to us, ask questions, give us
a review.
Let us know what we're doing wrong. Let us know what we're doing right. We're always, we would like encouragement and knowing what you would like us to do. And if you would ever like something covered on the show, let us know, and we'll make a topic out of it. And if you want to be like part of the show and be in one of our testimonials, you've been sober for a minute, let us know. Hit me up or hit Austin up, and we would love to have your voice be
Absolutely.
on the show.
Yeah, you can email us directly at Austin, AUSTIN, at beginningstreatment.com, or Pej, PEJ, at beginningstreatment.com. Pej, is there anything else that you would like to touch upon today? I think we covered a lot of ground.
I think we're all good.
All right.
Sorry for starting late. It was my fault.
It's no one's fault.
I'll be late to my own wedding, to my own funeral. Yeah.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. As always, sober grind.
Sober grind.
Out.
Out.